Hello, I'm Adam Kielich, the managing attorney at the Kielich Law Firm in Bedford, Texas, and today's quick video is about enforcing child support orders. Under the Texas Family Code, child support can be ordered in either a divorce involving children or what's called a suit affecting the parent-child relationship, commonly called a SAPSR, which is a custody suit not involving married parents. Or to say that more clearly, a custody suit involving two parents that are not married. When child support is ordered in either a divorce or a SAPSR, it comes along with certain requirements about how the money is paid, where it's paid, how it's distributed to the parent receiving the child support, and commonly they also come along with an income withholding order. In spite of all of this, sometimes the child support is not paid by the obligor, the parent who owes the child support. In these cases, the Texas Family Code also gives us some additional remedies and mechanisms to be able to enforce these child support orders. A child support obligation must be paid even if the obligor has no income to be able to pay the child support. The Texas Family Code is pretty clear about that the obligation is ongoing no matter what. Even if the obligor is in jail, the child support is still owed. The problem, though, is if the obligor doesn't have assets and doesn't have income, it can be difficult in encouraging that person to go find a way to pay the child support. Fortunately, the Texas Family Code gives us plenty of opportunities, plenty of ways to go about doing this. When a child support order is enforced, it's enforced through the family courts. In Tarrant County and Dallas County, we have special family courts that deal with all of these family issues. In other counties that are not quite as big in Texas, such as Denton, there are no special family courts, and all of the family matters are heard by the district courts. A child support enforcement is going to be filed in the same courts, and those courts will help the obligee, the parent who receives the child support, recover what's been left unpaid. So let's talk a little bit about the remedies and the enforcement mechanisms that are available under the Texas Family Code. So we'll first start off with the remedies. Obviously, the Texas Family Code is going to provide as a remedy in order that orders the obligor to pay the unpaid child support. In addition to just the unpaid child support, the obligee can recover interest on that amount, which it's a pretty decent interest rate. So if the child support has gone unpaid for a while, that interest could actually be a decent sum of money. Additionally, as a remedy, the obligee can recover court costs and attorney fees related to that enforcement. That can be very useful because it allows the obligee who may not have a lot of money because the child support hasn't been paid to be able to hire an attorney, go down to the courthouse, get the enforcement, and then attach the attorney fees onto the obligor and force that person to pay those attorney fees rather than the obligee having to pay for that out of their own pocket. In addition to the sum of money that can be recovered as a remedy in a child support enforcement, there are a number of enforcement mechanisms that can be applied in a child support enforcement that can help make sure that the parent receiving the child support, the obligee, gets the money that they're entitled to. One way to do it is to have a new income withholding order issued to the employer that includes this unpaid amount in addition to the normal monthly amount. Now that works fine if the obligor is working somewhere where where his or her income is sufficient to be able to pay off those amounts. Sometimes child support goes unpaid where the obligor loses a job isn't getting paid anything for a while and then finds a new job and starts getting paid, but hasn't taken the right steps to try to pay back the unpaid child support. So that's an option. Additionally, the obligee can turn the order for unpaid child support and attorney fees into a money judgment and collect it against the assets of the obligor. Much in the same way that any other kind of civil judgment can be recovered. This can work if the obligor has a lot of assets that can be touched. But in Texas, we have some very strong protections for property against creditors, and for most people, there's not going to be a lot of money that, or a lot of assets rather, that can be attached to satisfy that judgment. So that's not too common of an approach, but it is an option out there. Additionally, a quadro can be used to recover child support from an employer's retirement plan. A quadro is a qualified domestic relations order. A quadro is normally used in a divorce in the property division to divide out one person's retirement plan, to give part of that retirement plan asset to the other spouse in the divorce. But a quadro can be used to satisfy an unpaid child support obligation, or really to satisfy any child support obligation. This is a tricky approach. It's easy to get these kind of quadros wrong, but again, it's a mechanism that's available. Additionally, the Texas Family Code allows the obligee to request the court to suspend certain types of licenses issued by the state. These can be both professional and recreational licenses. So that can pin the ability for somebody to earn money or to engage in whatever their hobbies are, and sort of encourage them to pay the child support. And for people that work in highly regulated industries where they have to be licensed to do their job, that could be a very powerful mechanism, actually, to encourage them to find a way to pay the unpaid child support. And perhaps the most severe enforcement mechanism is that an obligor who owes child support, past due child support, can be put in prison until the child support is paid. It's obviously the most severe and aggressive against the obligor, so there's got to be a pretty good reason to send that person to jail, especially because if somebody goes to jail, they're not working, so they can't make money to pay the child support. And if they go to jail, there's a good chance that whatever job they have won't be there when they get out. So although it's severe and the threat of going to jail often can be a pretty effective tool, it has to be welded very carefully, because if the obligor says, fine, send me to jail, and the court orders it, that can make recovering child support into the future that much more difficult. There are some other enforcement mechanisms that are similar. For example, the obligor can be put on probation. That can sort of split the difference between sending them to jail and letting them run amok. Putting the person on probation not only limits their freedom to do a number of things, but it can also impact their ability to maintain a job. And if they're a person with certain proclivities or a record of certain illegal activity, that can create some real problems if they continue with that behavior once they've been put on probation. So those enforcement mechanisms are out there. Some of them can be used in combination with the others, or quite a few of them actually can be used together. What really has to be determined and assessed when asking for those remedies or to employ those enforcement mechanisms is really what's going to get the unpaid child support paid, plus what's going to allow the obligor to continue to pay the child support going into the future. Sometimes there's not an easy option, and we've got to toss the obligor into jail. But more often than not, a more deft approach can have a long-term benefit for the obligee. To obtain a child support enforcement, some people will go to the Attorney General for help, or in certain counties like Tarrant or Dallas County, there's a county level office that helps with this as well. Personally, I'm very hesitant to encourage people to go to one of these state or county agencies to deal with the child support enforcement. That's not because there's a cash pile for me in the child support enforcement. I mean, granted, I do get paid doing that work, but the problem is these government agencies, especially the Attorney General's office, tends to be very slow in recovering this money. I've had people tell me that it's taken them over a year to get into court on these child support enforcements. That's simply way too long. There's very little reason why a person should not be able to get the enforcement taken care of within about a 2-month period, and there are strategic reasons why taking that particular time period is beneficial. The other reason why it may not make sense to go with a government agency is that you do have the ability to recover the attorney fees and the court costs. So, although you may have to pay the attorney something up front, or the attorney may work out some other type of fee agreement with you, ultimately you can shift the burden of hiring the attorney onto the obligor. So if you can get a faster result and ultimately not have to pay for the attorney, then it may make sense to go ahead and hire a private attorney, or at least talk to a private attorney before going and getting one of the government agencies involved.